Oh, great. Okay, amazing. Oh, wow. You guys are also participatory. This is great. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Okay, well, just really quickly, let me go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Aditi, and I work here at Indiegogo on our strategy team, which means that we have developed a lot of strategies that we think work really well to help you run a crowdfunding campaign. And today we're going to be hosting the Crowdfunding 101 campaign to give you guys like a really good understanding of the baseline for how crowdfunding actually works. So just a few quick technical points, that way we can make sure to get those handled beforehand. Yes, we will be sending out this recording to everyone. So if the audio cuts in and out, or if you're having issues with your, the connection on your side, not to worry. We will send you the recording, and you can just go ahead and watch it later on. This is also helpful if there is a point that you happen to miss because we're taking notes. There is a little comments box over here, as you guys are noticing, which is amazing. But I won't be able to answer questions as we go since it's just me today. At the very end, we're going to try and leave some time for Q&A, and so we can go ahead and answer a few of the pressing ones then. But if you guys can, feel free to go ahead and type out anything. Maybe there's a chance someone else in the audience has an answer, or someone's run a campaign before. But I'll be keeping an eye on it. I just won't be answering too many questions as I'm going forward. All right, so just a quick thing. Bear with me. I'm just getting over a little bit of sickness, so if I cough, I'm so sorry. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Really quickly, we like to open up with what is Indiegogo. For anyone that's new here and who hasn't done any crowdfunding in the past, our mission is that we empower people to unite around the ideas that matter to them, and together we're going to make those ideas come to life. And it's because internally we're a very mission-driven company, and it's really important to us to sort of live by these ideals. And this webinar and the webinar series that we host is actually an attempt to make sure that you guys have the same knowledge that we have, so you guys can be empowered to run a really successful campaign and make your dreams come true. And so, yeah, that's kind of just generally why we're here today. So what's great about Indiegogo? Obviously, this hot pink is pretty great. It's pretty bright. But what else do we have? We've got fixed and flexible funding. These are two different types of funding options that you have on Indiegogo. Sometimes people are used to one specific type of funding, which is the fixed funding. What this means is that if you don't raise 100% of the funds by the time your campaign ends, you don't receive any of the funds. We also offer the flexible funding option, which means that you can keep whatever funds you raise, regardless of whether or not you end up hitting 100% of your goal. So people ask, like, why would I choose one or the other? Each one is different, and it really depends on like your personal needs as a campaign. And so I think to make it a little more easy to understand and kind of help you figure out which one is right for you, let's give some examples. Excuse me. So the first example we have here is flexible funding for the Loft Opera campaign. And a few years ago, they ran this campaign to bring opera to the general public. Opera is obviously something that a lot of people consider to be really inaccessible. It's done on a stage. It's done with like classically trained performers. And the general populace doesn't think of this as something that they can also access. So Loft Opera was changing that, and they wanted to bring the opera to your loft and to smaller spaces so people could really connect with it. Now, they had a goal of 25K, and they actually didn't end up hitting that goal. They got really close to it, and they ended up getting almost 20,000. But this was okay because they actually had a matching grant on the side that was going to help them reach the remainder and a little more after that point. And so actually Loft Opera is a real thing, and they've been going strong in Europe for a while. So it's pretty exciting. As an example of fixed funding, we have the Accent Wear Cat Your Headphones campaign. This is one of my favorite examples of a hardware campaign for a lot of different reasons. One, they're very eye-catching, as you can see. There are these headphones that are also speakers, and the sound comes out not only the traditional over-the-ear headphone, but in the ears itself, there are speakers, so you can play it out loud if you'd like. And so these are actually available now at Brookstones, and I've seen them in airports before, which is really cool. And Ariana Grande even had a partnership with them, which is pretty fun. But when they first started, it was actually just two girls out of Berkeley, and they were just students, and they had this cool idea, and they wanted to make it happen. But they didn't really have the means to make it happen without significant amounts of funding. And so they set a goal of around $250,000, and they actually smashed through that, and they ended up with over $3 million. And so because of the fact that they raised all this money, they were actually able to create the product. And like I said, they're now available pretty widely. But they knew that they couldn't do it unless they had at least a specific amount of money. And so that's the kind of instance that you would want to use fixed funding for. Can you create the product with or without 100% of the funds? Then go ahead and do flexible. But if you need 100% of a certain amount in order to actually produce, and you don't think there's any way you can get the funding otherwise, then you would run a fixed campaign, because you are liable to the backers, and you want to be able to build a brand that's a lasting brand and something that is going to take you into the future. And so, honesty is really the best policy here. So something else that's important to note is that we are a global platform. What that means is that we have reach that's pretty wide. 223 countries is the last time we did a count. And we also allow you to raise funds in more than just USD. You can raise in euros, Australian dollars, Canadian dollars, and pounds. And so you can only raise in one of these currencies at a time. You can't raise multiple currencies, unfortunately. But this is really helpful if you aren't based out of the States and you really want to reach an audience that's really based out of, perhaps you're in Scotland or something. So example here we have is the Flowhive campaign. And so Flowhive is one of our biggest campaigns, $12 million, to help solve the bee crisis that we all kind of know about. And they actually had backers from over 155 countries, which is great. And they were actually based out of Australia. But despite the fact that they were out of Australia, they had a lot of backers that were going to be, they knew this was like a really global issue. And so they decided to raise funds in USD instead, and they had the money sent to their Australian bank account. An example of a campaign that was raising funds in a different currency other than dollars is the Butter campaign, and they were raising money in pounds because they were two gentlemen based out of Scotland, and they knew that their audience was primarily also going to be in Scotland, and they wanted to make sure that they catered to that. And so they were actually raising money to have this give one get one sort of model, and all of their profits actually went towards water conservation efforts and the like. So that's pretty exciting. I'm hearing some messages about people having issues with audio. I'm so sorry. It sounds like some people are having an easier time of it, which is great. Something I'd recommend here is maybe just logging out, logging back in, and seeing if that works. It does allow you to test your system just so you can, triple check. But okay, get back to the presentation. So another thing we have is lots of dogs. We are a very happy team, and we have a lot of customer support. And so we're here to help out, with things like the webinar. We also have an entrepreneur center that has a lot of information from write-ups that we've done to webinars previously. We also have some podcasts that we've done. We try to be really available to you. And if you have any questions, you can also reach out to our customer support team. They're available 24/7 and usually get back to you within 24 hours with an answer to your questions. So really quickly, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys a video from one of our co-founders, Slava, and he's going to kind of go over just general crowdfunding. He's got some good facts in here, and so I'm going to go ahead and mute myself so you can give this a listen.
I'm Slava Rubin, and I'm with Indiegogo. Crowdfunding is a flavor of crowdsourcing. So you can crowdsource anything. You can crowdsource ideas, you could crowdsource pictures, you can crowdsource light. Whatever it is that you're trying to get little bits of to make one big thing happen. So crowdfunding is the crowdsourcing of funds. The Statue of Liberty was actually crowdfunded. Joseph Pulitzer, who owned the New World, used the newspaper as his technology to send out to his local distribution network, his readers, to say, hey, we need to raise $100,000 to be able to fund the base for the Statue of Liberty. From the beginning, we really wanted to democratize funding, which is to allow anybody to raise money for absolutely anything. We're just trying to play our part in fixing what we feel is a massive gap in the market in terms of access to capital. Other players, whether it be VCs, banks, government institutions, or others, they have their application process. They are gatekeepers. Based on their criteria, they are deciding if you deserve money. If you don't fit through their gate, you're not going to get money. which is all fine and good. But where Indiegogo is completely different is there are no gatekeepers. Anybody has an opportunity to get anything funded. It's completely open. People want to know how to run a good Indiegogo campaign. And it really all comes down to three things. One, have a good pitch. Two, be proactive. And three, find an audience that cares. One myth is, oh, I just need to post on Indiegogo and millions of dollars just come rushing in. That's not what happens. You need to be working on it. You need to really own it. We are a multiplier. We help amplify what you're able to do and make you do better. One of the biggest failures of a campaign is if it becomes boring and old and no one cares anymore. So you want to keep it fresh. It's very easy to come out of the gate quick because you did a lot of work up front. There's a lot of excitement. If you hit 25% of your funding within the first week, you're 5 times more likely to hit your target. Chances are you're going to have a good finish because you have that deadline. The key is to keep the momentum going along the way in the middle. We know if you have 4 more people on your team, you'll raise 70% more money than if you have 1 person. If you do an update every 5 days or less, you'll raise 4 times more money than if you do an update every 20 days or more. We know that email is your number 1 tool for raising money, Facebook is number 2, and Twitter is number 3. We know if you have a video as part of your campaign, you'll raise 114% more money than if you don't have a video. You want to have 3 to 8 perks. A perk is some sort of product, service, or experience as barter in return for the different funding levels. On average, you'll hit your target on day 36 of a 47-day long campaign. Indiegogo is really built on, amazing things that have happened by other entrepreneurs that have pushed the bar forward, which I think is super exciting because if you empower an entrepreneur to push forward, an entrepreneur can change the world.
Okay, great. So, yeah, that was just some general information about Crowdfunding 101. This is some basic information for those of you guys who might not have really experienced this before. So, we want to make sure to kind of cover the basics before we actually get into the nitty gritty. And so, I'm going to speak a little bit slower here. And I know that was a little bit of a problem. So, just let me know if I'm speaking too fast again. So, really quickly, what does success in crowdfunding look like? That green bar is something that people pay attention to a lot. They worry that they're not really going to hit 100% of the funds. Something to keep in mind is that it's not always entirely about the funds. Obviously, it is really exciting to hit 100% and see that success. But success actually does come in a lot of different forms, and that's something that we've noticed across the board. So what you end up doing by running a crowdfunding campaign is you have direct access to a community, and you have direct access to communication with the community. You can send out updates. You can get direct feedback by asking them questions to see, do you like this product? Do you like this feature? How do you feel about this change we're making? Do you like this color? And so that's actually something that a lot of early startups don't really have access to. And so just make sure that as you're building out your campaign, you're also working on building your community as well. Market validation is something else, and this is maybe a bit of a tough pill for people to swallow, but sometimes the reason that you aren't hitting 100% is because the market is showing you that your product isn't necessarily needed, and maybe you need to change something about it in order to actually find the right fit. And so Indiegogo is a really great way of doing that. You can figure out how to actually find the audience that you need. And real-time user feedback is something you're going to be getting throughout the campaign. People will be writing in comments, asking you questions you can add to your FAQ as it's going, which is always kind of important, you'll see. So what makes a successful campaign? So this is what we're actually going to break it down into today. How to set an attainable goal, how to actually write your compelling pitch, perks that you'll need, and how to create some unique ones, and how to go about with promotion, which is arguably one of the most important parts, and I'm sure the part that a lot of you are actually here for today. So first things first, so let's talk about setting an attainable goal. Something that I want you guys to walk away with is that a higher goal does not necessarily equal more money. This is a bit of a misconception. I think that people find, they think that if they put $50,000 on the page, they're actually going to walk away with that. So let's take a really quick look at this example. Which campaign are you actually more likely to contribute to? I'll let you guys wait for just a second. Cool. Yep, the one on the left, as we've noticed, is a little bit further along, even though they're both at 20K. So the reason that this is actually kind of something that works is that people are more likely to contribute to something that they already see as being sort of successful. If you are walking by two restaurants and you don't have any information other than the fact that one seems pretty full and one seems pretty empty, which one are you more likely to go to? The one that has more people, right? So you obviously don't want to mislead people, and you don't want them to like if you only need 50,000 to produce, that's great. If you need 150,000 to produce, you should definitely put that on the page. But if you can put a lower amount, you should put a lower amount. It's going to be easier to get to 30%, which is actually the tipping point that we find with most backers. So until you hit that 30%, people that aren't used to your product and don't know a lot about you are unlikely to contribute to the page. And so that 30% that you are originally building should come from your direct audience you already worked with and are a little more aware of what's going on behind the scenes. Once you hit that 30%, the traffic that you're sending to the page, either through press or through ads or just through generally sharing through your friends, those are the people that are likely to contribute after that 30%. Hey guys, so I'm noticing some comments in the section. If you have any, feedback that you'd like to give us, that would be really helpful. But just try and keep it productive if possible. What makes a successful campaign? So let's talk about your pitch. So a campaign that launches with a pitch video raises about 115% more than campaigns without a video. Now, at this point, it's pretty common practice to have a video on your page, but if you're still on the fence about whether or not you should create one, this is a pretty important stat to mind. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It doesn't have to be something that you've spent lots and lots of money behind. But what's important is that you hit these points. You want to make sure that you're answering the who, the what, the when, the where, the why, and the how. These are some very simple basics. You have to tell your story within 3 minutes. Actually, I would maybe even say 2 minutes. I think in the first 30 seconds, you have to really grab them, and then you have about a minute and a half until they're probably going to leave. And that last final third minute, if you're planning on adding on an extra minute, just keep some of the extras there. But the primary meat of your story should happen in the first minute and a half. Obviously, you can't always guarantee that someone's even going to watch your video. On Indiegogo, we find primarily that the way that works is people will click play on the video, they'll watch for maybe a couple seconds, they'll start scrolling down the page as they kind of casually listen to the audio. Maybe they'll go back up again. Again, you can never really guarantee that someone's going to sit and watch your video uninterrupted for 5 to 10 minutes. And so you want to make sure to kind of account for that as you're building out this video. So having some strong audio that actually talks about what you're showing on the screen is really important at the same time. Have a strong call to action at the very end. Just let people know, hey guys, we're raising funds for this campaign. We would appreciate it if you could pledge for blah, blah, blah for this product. People sometimes don't really know exactly why they're watching this. What am I supposed to do with this information? You just told me all about you're saving the oceans. Now what? Okay, cool. I can buy this product for $50 and that will help. Great, good to know. And then they move on and actually pledge. So just make sure you actually round it out with that call to action at the end. And of course, express gratitude. You want to thank people for being there and for supporting you and your dreams and your product. People really like supporting other people. And so anything you can do to make it a little personal at the end is helpful. So I'm going to show you guys a quick example video. This is from the Backyard Growers headquarters campaign. They ran a campaign to actually raise money to create a new headquarters. It was a family-run business, and they just really wanted to expand. And they actually ended up raising a little more than what they needed, which is really exciting. So I'm going to go ahead and play the video. I know there were some issues with audio for some people last time. You can go ahead and refresh the page, and that might actually help. If it doesn't help, I'm so sorry. We will be sending out the video later on, so you can give it a watch. And yeah. Let us know in the comments actually what you're finding to be really insightful about this video and like what you think is actually working, or maybe if you think something isn't working, you can also let us know. It's a bit of a discussion here, so we'd love to see some feedback from you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and mute myself.
Hi, I'm Willa.
And I'm B.
And this is our mom, Laura. She's the director of Backyard Growers, this really cool organization that provides garden beds and programs to families, schools, and community groups in Gloucester, Massachusetts.
Laura's the best!
In 5 short years, Backyard Growers has evolved from providing a handful of neighbors with backyard gardens to all this. Backyard Growers is a small, scrappy, nonprofit organization. We know how to do a lot with a little. The main base of our operations is our house. And when I say our house, I mean the kitchen table, the hall, the living room, the bedroom, the basement, the yard, the driveway, and sometimes the street. Backyard Growers is officially bursting at its seams and now needs an official Backyard Growers global headquarters. We need to raise $15,000 to pay for the first year of rent, and we need your help. Our own space means centralized operations, which means more efficiency and better management, which means strengthened programs, more people served, and strategic growth.
And that means we get our house back!
Everything you need to know about how we're going to use the space is right down here below.
Amazing. Thanks, guys. So yeah, I'm seeing some comments in the bottom. Actually, so the wonderful thing about this video is it was actually really pretty handheld, and it was just a family that did it themselves. There were a few elements that maybe a little bit more tech savvy people, they had like kind of that running text box that ran through. None of that was really necessary. Even just having a video of you and your project and showing people an up close and personal view of what's actually going on behind the scenes is really exciting, especially if you have a community program like this is really helpful. So I'm seeing some great things here. Kids, honest, it's funny, it's cute. Yeah, this is all definitely it. So what they were doing right is they were really personable. You got to see that this was a very close to home project, and you got to see everyone involved. You got to see the entire family. They made it really fun. You got to see all the kids and the impact they were actually making. In this case, they definitely used the camera that they had available. There were lots and lots of images of the actual impact of their campaign, and you were able to see how your $20 were really going to affect this product and their future. So this is definitely more of an example of a community-based video. A lot of Indiegogo projects are hardware oriented, and so I think something that I would recommend doing is actually just going to Indiegogo.com and watching a bunch of the videos or the campaigns that you think are similar to yours or campaigns that you would like to emulate in some way or other. And then just kind of learning from what they did and seeing how they addressed and tackled the questions head on. And so, yeah, definitely a lot of the campaigns that are really successful, they have professionals behind their videos, especially with a lot of the hardware campaigns. And there are a lot of agencies that will do this for you. And it can cost a lot of money, but again, it doesn't necessarily need to cost a lot of money. And I think if you're going to spend money on your campaign, I would actually push that into ads or into promotions rather than into creating an incredibly fancy, shiny product video. So let's move on directly into your pitch and the best practices here. So you want to make sure to plan the pitch real estate. What that really means is think about this in a holistic way. How are you going to get your message across in a way that actually is absorbed by people? Have a really strong, comprehensive introduction, and you want to get to the point. You don't want to spend a whole lot at the top of the page, just kind of meandering around the point or presenting the problem but not the solution. You want to make sure to use lots of images and charts and graphics whenever possible. The internet has an incredibly short attention span, guys. We all know this. Whenever you see a super long article, it takes people longer and longer to get through this, unfortunately. And so instead of having large blocks of text on your page, you want to try and break this up with lots of images, videos, GIFs, if you can create GIFs. Those are always exciting. And charts, graphics, whatever you can do to sort of shake up the structure a little bit and make it so that it's easier to absorb. You can also present information through images, which is kind of one of the important things to note here. So if you have to create infographics, you should go ahead and do so. There are people on companies like Fiverr or some of these like freelancing companies where you can pay maybe a smaller amount of money to get something like this created. You do want to make sure when you're working with a company like that to give them really clear guidance about what it is that you want and have something strongly in mind as far as like the visual look of the campaign. You don't really want to leave this in the hands of a stranger and kind of end up with a page that doesn't really cohesively make a lot of sense. A simple thing is just even using the same font on everything. Oftentimes I'll see pages have like 4 different fonts on the page, and like they'll have like 3 different color schemes with images, and that can get really busy. And then you have the opposite problem. Instead of having a large block of text, you just have a very busy page that reminds us of like MySpace circa 2007 or something, So we're trying to avoid that as well. And the final point is be authentic and transparent. You want to make sure that people are really getting an idea of who you are and why you're raising these funds. What is the whole point of this? Something else to circle back to having this strong, comprehensive introduction. On average, we actually see people spend about 2 minutes to 3 minutes on the campaign page. That's not a lot of time, and that actually includes the video as well. And so you don't have a whole lot of time to actually get people's attention. You want to make sure that the top half, the top of the fold, if you're thinking of it in newspaper sense, is really engaging and gets to the point. And so you don't want to bury your most important points in the second half of the page. You don't want people to scroll lots and lots to actually get to that point. So the who, what, when, where, why, right off the bat. So an example of what this looks like is the Girl Scouts for Every Girl campaign. They were raising funds in order to make up for some money that they lost from a donor who pulled out because of their support for young trans girls. And so they originally wanted $100,000. They ended up finding their audience. They ended up getting about $300,000, which is amazing. And as you can see, this is just like the very top of their page, and they answer everything right off the bat. In the first 2 paragraphs, I know exactly why they're raising this money. They have this beautiful image of these young girls that are together and they're doing a community project, and I just already have the picture of what's going on. The more I read at this point, the more I learn. But again, the bulk of the information is contained right here. Again, something else that I would recommend doing is like take a look at all those successful campaigns that you think really are in line with what you'd like to be and what you'd like to do, and just really sit down and like dissect why their information makes sense to you and why you're absorbing it in certain ways and not in others, and how you would do it differently. We hosted a webinar a little while ago actually about pitches and how to form your best pitch. And if you'd like to give that one a watch, it's actually available in our Entrepreneur Center. We provide sort of a general outline that you can kind of work with. So yeah, give that one a watch if you'd like a little more information. These are some examples of images that you can include. If you have a product campaign, having the actual product is very, very important. Don't show just a bunch of renderings. People are going to start believing, they aren't going to believe that this is a real product. This is an image of the team that's actually behind the scenes for this film that's going on. You can see the production of this other product, and you've got this more like glamorous shot of this other one. So you can kind of mix it up. There's a lot of different ways to do this. And then, of course, having images of your team is really important. Whoever is actually creating the product, people want to know. People actually respond really, really well to other people in crowdfunding campaigns. Sometimes I'll look at a page and there's not a person to be seen anywhere, and that's the first thing I tell people to do. And so if you have a team working on this, just get a quick shot of you guys, on a hammock or whatever it is that you want to do. Anything that you can do to seem a little personable and like you're real people with real. Excuse me. So being transparent is also incredibly important. I've mentioned this a few times. So people want to know where are the funds actually going, and why do you need all this money to actually produce something. This is an example of what the product actually looks like, and you can kind of label, this is the visor, this is the this, and so people can get a better idea of what your product actually looks like. So moving on into what makes a successful campaign, and perks, I think, are one of the more recognizable aspects of crowdfunding that you guys are probably pretty aware of. So the way it works is people, of course, go ahead and they claim the perks, which are the rewards that you offer in exchange for their contributions. These are available on the right side of the page if you're looking at it on a browser. And I think a successful perk really motivates people to back out of a few different things. Passion, pride, participation is kind of what we say here. And so this is really like tapping into all 3 of these things, I think, is the best thing that you can do. So in the example over here, we have Mission Cheese. They were a company out of San Francisco that was trying to open up a cheese and wine cafe. Actually, they already exist, and so if you walk down Valencia Street, you'll see them. They offer a really nice cheese platter. And so when you walk into Mission Cheese, what you can see is the sheep on the wall. And if you look a little closer at the sheep, you can see that the sheep are actually made of names. And so one of the perks that they offered was to incorporate backers' names on the mural that they were going to have on the wall. And so you can actually just go to Mission Cheese and you can point at the wall and you can say, oh my gosh, it's me, I made this place happen, this is really exciting, and you can bring your friends by. And that's just kind of a really cool thing to be able to do for someone. And so this is, I think, an example of something that really taps into all three of those things at once. Some other examples that I think work really well are experience perks. And an experience perk is really just giving someone the chance to experience something that they wouldn't normally get the chance to do. I like to think of this as being something that money can't really buy. And so in the case of Peak Yogurt, what they did was they knew that their audience was very much about like organic foodie stuff. And so they really knew that people would like actually get into yogurt making and to know what was behind the process. And so they offered this cool perk where you could actually show up to the factory and like really see how the yogurt was made, and you can actually get into the process yourself. And so that was a pretty successful perk for them. And so if you have something like that that you can do, really giving people a behind the scenes look, offering like a limited opportunity, just like 5 people can come by, that's a cool thing to do. Something else that works really well is a digital good. This is especially helpful because it can be a little bit cheaper as far as packaging and shipping goes, because it is a digital product. You can just email it out to everyone afterwards, and that kind of saves you a little bit of time with that. If you have something like images that you can send out, this is a really good option. If you have like wallpapers, if you have some sort of photography element to your campaign, this is helpful. In the case of New Mundo over here, they were actually expanding into South America. And so in order to kind of tap into that audience, what they did is they created a digital music album. And they let people download this for $15, and it was just music created from South America. And so it really tapped into like the direction they were moving. So an in-kind perk is actually just you tapping into your existing audience to try and get like a perk built out. And so this was the Coolie Coolie campaign, and they were planting trees in Haiti for these moringa, which are highly, highly nutritious, and they wanted to bring those to the States. And I think you can actually get these in Whole Foods now, which is pretty cool. But one of the perks that they offered was in cooperation with Timberland, and they offered these really cool bags, and they had this corporate sponsorship that they managed to get out, and people were buying these Timberland bags as part of the campaign. So this was like a pretty outside of the box thing, because their product was really just for like a nutritional supplement. But they managed to make this connection with Timberland, and Timberland thought their product and their idea was very cool and wanted to have some sort of corporate sponsorship with it. So thinking outside of the box like this is also a good idea. It doesn't necessarily have to be the product that you are offering. But sometimes it is the product that you're offering. If you are a hardware campaign, this is going to just be your good. So if you're offering, a drone or something like that, that's just the product. In the case of community-oriented campaigns or something that is maybe food or whatever, this is something that you can offer like a T-shirt or a hat. Often we actually say not to offer T-shirt perks. I think that they're a little bit overdone. Everyone has too many T-shirts already. You don't want to offer yet another one, and it's not always really exciting. This is one campaign that actually did a cool thing with their T-shirt. So they had the regular price T-shirt, and then what they did is they offered another T-shirt at like a slightly higher price point. And if you bought that T-shirt, whenever you walked into the local store, which is actually a restaurant in San Francisco, whenever you walked in wearing a shirt, you actually got a discount off of your meal, which is very cool because then it encourages people to buy more when they're actually in your restaurant, and they paid more upfront to actually get the shirt. So it was just like kind of a really interesting twist on the typical T-shirt idea. So don't be afraid to think outside of the box. It might actually end up being something that people really want. While you're creating your perks and really thinking about this, you want to be sure that you're also thinking about the fulfillment on the back end. So you have all these really big dreams about what you'd like to offer and how many of them you'd like to offer, but you have to be sure to do the math. And I know this sounds really simple, but you would be shocked at how many people kind of when it comes to time to deliver, they haven't actually really done all of the math yet. And so you want to make sure you're actually accounting for your time as well. So this image is actually of someone's living room. They were packaging all these perks to be sent out, and they did this themselves. And so packaging all of this themselves took a lot of time and took a lot of effort and money. And so you want to make sure that you're actually calculating how much time am I going to be putting into this project to actually ship this out to people. You don't know whether or not 10 people will want to buy your product or 10,000 people will want to buy your product. And you have to think about that ahead of time. So if you end up having a very successful product that people select, can you actually fulfill with 700 more than you'd initially anticipated? So you want to make sure to talk to the factories if you're developing there, or t-shirt runs or whatever it is that you're doing, to really figure out whether or not you can actually offer this. International shipping. I've mentioned that this is that we are an international platform, and you can raise money in all kinds of different currencies. But what this also means is that people from all over the world can actually back your campaign. So you don't know, perhaps you're based out of California and someone in Nairobi is actually really interested in whatever you're selling. So can you actually ship to Nairobi? You have to do the math beforehand. And so if you find that it's actually not going to be feasible for you to ship outside of your country or your surrounding countries, you don't actually have to offer the product to them. In the back end, you can actually select which countries. You can also allot different shipping prices for different countries. And so if it's only going to be $5 to the US, amazing. And $30 elsewhere, that's fine. You can just go ahead and account for that on the actual campaign itself. But make sure you actually do the math beforehand. Otherwise, you're going to be paying this out of pocket, which is really what we'd like to avoid. And then this final point, it's just kind of nestled at the very bottom, but I think it is the most important thing, is you want to really be transparent about your timing. How long is it actually going to take to produce? If you think it's actually going to be delivering in September, don't tell people to expect it in June. You're only going to have a lot of angry people on your hands. And sometimes people think, well, no one will want to buy it for September. That might be the case, but then come June, you're going to have a lot of angry people who are confused about why they don't have this product for the summer months or whatever it is that they were expecting. This especially comes into play around the holidays, when people really think that they're going to be able to offer something to their friends that they bought on Indiegogo, and suddenly it comes time to it and they actually don't have anything. So you want to be transparent about the timing beforehand. That said, things happen and maybe you estimated September and it's actually, pushing December and you still aren't able to fulfill. People will be understanding if you are really upfront with them as the process is going on. So we have an updates feature. I highly, highly recommend that you keep people informed through that. And so if it's looking like you have to push it out a little bit, go ahead and shoot everyone an update. It's going to send everyone who backed you an email letting them know that you've sent an update, and it'll give them the update in the body of their email. And you can let them know, hey guys, really exciting news. The factory has finally sent us this. Here are the images. Just make people feel like they're a part of your process as well. With crowdfunding, like I said, one of the things is building a community, and people are really excited about being a part of your community. So just use that as to your advantage, rather than as like, oh my gosh, I have to keep all these people up to date. It's kind of an exciting thing. And so last but definitely not least, we're going to talk a little bit about promotion. And I think that this is something that probably a lot of people are kind of confused about. And so we want to make sure to get questions answered here. Just as a heads up, we have had a really in-depth webinar about promotions in the past, and you can actually find this in our Entrepreneur Center. This is a 101 webinar today, and so we're kind of just covering a lot of the basics for some of you who might not really be aware of any of this. But if this is too 101 for you, we totally get it. We've got some really meaty stuff that we've done in conjunction with an agency, actually, so people that run promotions for a living. So first things first, you want to make sure you're planning your campaign at least a month out from launch. A month is maybe actually a little bit last minute. I would actually recommend, if you've got 3 months ahead of time, go ahead and start planning 3 months ahead of time. But at the 1 month mark, you should definitely be thinking about this. That is kind of the last point. So what should you be planning? What communities are you actually going to be promoting to? Sit down and list out everyone that you have spoken to about this, that you think might actually be interested in backing you. I like to think of this kind of like as an onion. So your inner layer versus your outer layer. Your inner layer is like your family, your friends. Your middle layer is your immediate community, people who are like well aware of what's going on, maybe people on your Facebook. Then your outer layer is people that you can you can access by press or by ads or something like that. And so make sure you list all these people out, and you've done the math on how many are actually there. We've mentioned that 30% before. You want to make sure that your inner layer hopefully can get you to that 30%. That way, by the time you push it out to people who aren't already aware of your product, they already have like kind of a core built up on the page. So what type of content are you going to be using to spread the word? A lot of people will use updates throughout the campaign. We really recommend having at least one per week. People will also use it like it's social media. So if you have a real social media following, make sure you're using that as well. What methods of communication are you going to be using to promote the campaign? We're going to talk a little bit more in depth about this, but some of the primary methods we see are email, social media, ads, press, etc. But email being the most important one. So it seems a little bit old school. Sometimes people are confused by that. But yeah, definitely email is actually one of the biggest of traffic. So what do we mean by community? So this is kind of that onion that I was talking about. The core part is your campaign team, so people who are running the campaign with you. After that, you've got your network, your friends and your family, your mom's best friend, whoever you think is going to be strong-armed into giving just because they love you. That's your personal network. Beyond that, you have project supporters, people who are actually interested in the outcome of your campaign, people that want to actually see you succeed for the sake of your project. And then after that, you've got the relevant groups, so communities that are sharing a common interest with your project. Maybe you're really active on Reddit instead of Twitter, and maybe you have a lot of people on Reddit who are totally aware of what it is that you're building and why you're building it. Go ahead and reach out to those people and just try and find a way to get them involved in your project. So methods of promotion. I mentioned this earlier, but email actually brings in 20% more funding than any other source. This is, like I said, a little bit old school, but yeah, it's definitely, people are checking their emails and they're really trying to get behind things that they see here. So contributions from email are also actually higher than other forms. And so this is because they have a real personal connection with you usually. If it's your inner circle of people, like your friends and your family, that's one of the reasons. But the other thing is if you've spent a lot of time building out an email list of people who are interested in your product or your project, these are people who are already used to receiving correspondence from you perhaps once a month or every 3 months. And they're used to being updated on your product and your project. And so they're actually going to be more likely to actually convert versus someone that you are able to get using something like Facebook ads or Instagram ads or something like that. Some general best practices for your emails that you send out. The subject line, you have to make sure this counts. You want it to be kind of catchy. Some of my favorites personally actually have emojis in them. I think that's always kind of a little bit funny, especially if it's like a relevant emoji. You want to make sure that it actually makes sense, of course. You keep the message really short and sweet and to the point. You have to have a strong, detailed call to action. So, click here to reserve your perk for 40% off or something like that. You want to tell them exactly what it is that they have to do. You want to include an image of the perk. This is a cool one of the Blue Smart campaign. You can see that this is like a beautiful bag and it looks like it's kind of high tech. And you want to keep it personal so that people don't feel like this is just yet another spammy thing that's being sent to them. A really good example of an email is actually this Kinsa campaign email that we received. And so the Kinsa campaign was actually a campaign for a baby thermometer, and it was really successful, actually. It ended up raising around $130K at its first time. And you can kind of see, if you look at this, that they have everything that we talked about before. At the very top, they list keep your family healthy at the touch of a button. Okay, I suddenly understand kind of what the reason is for this product. There's a really clear shot of the product itself. It's being held. It's not a rendering. That's very, very important. You don't want to use a rendering here. And you can kind of see what exactly the product does. They give you some basic facts about how it gives you peace of mind, just some general features, and then they tell us exactly how much you can get it off for and what the price is. And this is really important because it qualifies people before they even show up to the page. There's no sticker shock when they show up. So social media is the other thing that people end up using a lot of, and 22% of the campaigns raised funds do come from social media, and a lot of our traffic these days, of course, also comes from social sites. This is, between Facebook ads and Instagram ads, or people just generally sharing it with their own personal audiences. You can't discount that either. And so that being said, if you don't have a social media audience, I really don't want you to sit here and panic about that and think about how you have to build up a social media audience. You have to pay a lot of money to make that happen. If you're 1 month out from your campaign, focus on where you actually have a strong community. If that's not social media, that's totally fine. If it's actual personal connections, that's okay too. Some best practices, generally you want to make sure that your content is incredibly shareable. What that means is don't have incredibly long write-ups about the problem that you're solving for and global warming and then just like going off the deep end, right? You want to make sure this is just like one short few sentences where people really understand what the point is. This is something they can send on. You want to use some like compelling images and short videos. Videos are really good, especially since they just autoplay. People love that. And you want to make sure that the content is relevant to the audience and current events. Not having relevant content, people will just scroll right through that. And you want to be responsive. So what you're going to notice is people will start commenting on it. People will say like, hey, when does this come out? Or how much does this cost? Or why does this work? You want to make sure you're actually responding to people there. Again, this is a community building exercise, the entire process of crowdfunding. And so, by actually responding to people, you're slowly building out your community. A good example of a social media post is there's nothing wrong with fixing global warming, Steve, but maybe your long Facebook post is not the place to start when you're trying to sell your product. But yeah, Cuddle and Kind is the example we have here, and they were actually this just really cute campaign that was raising funds for these beautiful dolls, and they were handcrafted, and for everyone that you bought, you also fed 10 kids. And so this is something you can get behind if you have like a newborn or something. You want something really soft and beautiful, but you also want to do a little bit of good in the world. And so they had this social media post, and a lot of their social media posts were similar to this, where it was just a beautiful product and a child holding it, and obviously enjoying, having the product in their lives. And then they talked about World Kindness Day, and then they talked about like how this really is a simple act of kindness and it changes people's days, and that was really in line with the messaging of their product. And so you want to try and keep the messaging in line throughout the thing. So don't have your tone on your social media be totally different than the tone on your page. You don't want it to be jarring, because what will happen sometimes is people will have one tone in all of their social media and ads, and then when people show up to the page, it's just totally different. And that's when you really see the drop off in conversions. You want to make sure that that's pretty stable all the way across. You want to make sure that the message they're seeing on the social media post is actually reflected in the page. So the big question is, how do you gain contributions from people you don't know? That's the $1 million question. Literally millions of dollars are hanging in the line and you just don't know how to get to it. And so one of the ways to do that is press and news outlets. And so what you want to do here is you just draft a one-pager and you send this to relevant publications. And I really recommend starting local and small here. If you are based out of like Macon, Georgia, maybe don't go all the way to the New York Times. Maybe start with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution instead. Like, you want to make sure that you're actually targeting your audience to people who might actually care about your product and your story. Blogs are actually a really great way to go as well. People have spent a lot of time and money and effort in building up engaged communities. You have to do what you can to try and tap into these engaged communities in whatever you can. You're only one person. You can't build a community that's like 2 million people deep on your own. And so you have to contact blogs who share the target audience. What are the blogs that you visit and how can you get them to share your work? And so sometimes this can mean giving them a test unit to try and get them to actually use it themselves. Sometimes it can mean giving them a percentage of sales. There's a few different ways to do this. Secret perks are a feature that we're going to talk about just the very end of the presentation. And this is something that you can use here to try and tap into blogs and influencers as well. Excuse me. So influencers are the final element here, and these are just people that actually have huge social media followings, and you can just kind of have them promote on your behalf. And sometimes this can mean paying them up front. Sometimes this can mean test unit, kind of like the blog situation. Sometimes this is like an affiliate marketing thing. Sometimes it's just these are people in your audience, in your personal network, or someone knows someone, and they're happy to like help you out. So if you don't ask, you don't get. So don't be shy. Running a crowdfunding campaign is not the time to be shy about asking for money and asking for people to help you with promotions. You have to set that aside for a few months. So an example of why you should go local is actually the Root Division campaign. They ran a crowdfunding campaign in San Francisco, and it was for an art collective that was actually priced out of their location, and they were trying to raise funds to find a new one. And this is really important for people that live in cities like San Francisco or New York. We all have like a very serious housing crisis where people are getting priced out and they're unable to afford anything, and it's something that people are always talking about. And this is something that's really applicable to that community. And so instead of going to the New York Times, they went directly to the San Francisco Chronicle, and they actually ended up with a front page write-up because of it. They raised quite a few funds, and they're actually got a location, and they're a really exciting place, and they offer a lot of cool community resources. So don't be afraid to go local. San Francisco Chronicle is actually a pretty big newspaper. You can go much smaller than that. If your neighborhood has a newspaper, this is even something to try there. People actually still read those, so you might as well try. Managing your campaign. So 3 things really quick. We're kind of running into the last 10 minutes, and so we might just go a little bit over. For whoever is able to stick around, that would be great. For if you can't, we'll be sending out the recording later on. But 3 things to get you started is get to know your dashboard a little bit. You want to make sure you're updating really frequently, and how to use the secret perks that I mentioned earlier. So the dashboard is, this is just a sneak peek at what that looks like. So when you start your campaign and you receive your first pledge, this dashboard is going to pop up for you. And these are just kind of screenshots from different parts of it. But the referral section, as you can see at the top, this is how you track who is sending what traffic to your page. So if you do have like affiliate links, or if you're having influencers or anything like that, you can go ahead and see, okay, it looks like Claire is sending me a lot of traffic, and so I should definitely talk to her a little more and try and get her to do more of this. You can also have referral contests. That's one really great way to tap into your existing community. So you can say something like, hey guys, we're offering a free or discounted perk bundle for anyone that brings 5 or more pledges on board. And so you can provide detailed instructions on how to do that, and then you can actually track this on the back end. We have a lot of resources in our Help Center about how you can actually run things like referral contests. So I would just go ahead and search that out in our Entrepreneur Center. Again, the sources you can see over here. So yeah, if you're a bit more data-driven, this is a really good way to actually keep track of all of that. Google Analytics is also available to you if you have someone on your team that can really dig into that kind of stuff. But this is just some like more general analytics stuff that is a little more accessible than something like Google Analytics. You can also manage your perk fulfillment here, so you can see who pledged for what amount. And some questions that I actually see a lot are, do you have access to the emails of the people who backed your campaign immediately? Yes, you do. So the second a pledge comes through, there might be like a tiny little bit of a lag, but you will have access to those emails, and so you can follow up with those people later that day and perhaps even try and upsell them on the next level of perk. Or if you're offering a flash sale or something like that, that's a really good way of tapping into your existing audience to try and get them to buy more. So updates. This is a really important thing. People that post updates raise about 286% more than campaigns that do not. And you might wonder why that is. It's really just that community aspect that I was telling you about. When you post an update, what happens is everyone that's backed your campaign receives an email with that update. So if your update is something along the lines of, hey guys, we're hosting a flash sale, we're offering a second perk for 50% off, or whatever it is that you're doing, or an upgrade perk or something like that. The updates is how you communicate that to people. And so you can get them to come back to your page for a second round, or you get them to share their campaign. This is how you tell people you're hosting a referral contest. This is how you tell people that you have some manufacturing delays, or maybe you're manufacturing early and on time. You want to keep people up to date on what's going on. So some examples, post once a week. This is what I recommend. You want to avoid spamming people, but once a week is generally pretty good practice. Announce those new perks and the campaign milestones here. So if you add on upgrades, and if you have like a new color available, this is a good time to use that. You can show the fulfillment progress. This is a picture of the shipping update that someone had for their drone campaign. And encourage participation, ask for feedback. This is, I think, one of the most exciting uses of it. You can say things like, hey guys, we're thinking of offering a new color. What color should we offer? And then people will post a comment in your comment section saying, I would love to have green, or whatever it is. And they feel like they were a part of the process of actually creating your product. And it also kind of helps boost you in the visibility on Indiegogo itself, which is great. And like I said, you want to make sure not to spam. That is pretty important. Don't abuse your ability to update people, because then they'll unsubscribe. And then finally, secret perks. So secret perks are basically a unique link to a specific perk. And so what that means is if you create a secret perk, you will then be provided with a link that will take people directly to that perk. And you can't see that perk unless you have that link. So hopefully that makes sense. Really useful, like I said, if you have bloggers or influencers on board, so people that might have an audience that they're drive to the page. It's helpful for them because they can show that they're in the know and that they have a special discount for their audience. And it's helpful for you because you can really directly track to see the traffic that's coming from them. Early supporters, this is a good way to reward your early supporters for being there for you. So you can give everyone that was there on the first few days, you can send them a secret perk saying, hey guys, this is like an add-on perk. If you want to go ahead and buy the headphones for 15, you can go ahead and do that. The flash sale option is a really good one here as well. I've mentioned this a few times, but if you halfway through the campaign, what's going to end up happening is your campaign progress will slow down. Slava mentioned this in the video. And so this is a really good time to offer things like secret perks where you have a flash sale, or if you have an upgrade or whatever it is that you're doing, just to try and drive the traffic spikes in the middle of the campaign. That way it doesn't kind of flatline and then pick up again at the very end. That can be a little bit nervous. It can make people a little nervous to see that. Yeah, so that's generally actually kind of it. We made it just in time, guys. We have about 2 minutes left. And like I mentioned, this is very much 101 content. So for those of you who are already familiar with this, I'm so sorry. Hopefully you learned something new. We do have a lot more in-depth stuff we've done in the past about writing your own pitch. We've done a workshop where people sent in their pitches, and then we dissected them and tried to help you rewrite them. We've done how to create a good video. We've done how to, promotions, all kinds of stuff. And so if you'd like to watch that, that's available in our Entrepreneur Center. We will be sending out a link to some of this stuff later on. These are some general resources. We will also be hosting a next month's webinar on pre-launch pages. This is something that's especially helpful if you are trying to build up that email list that I was talking about beforehand. And so as you're trying to build that up, what are the best practices around actually having a pre-launch page? And so if you're interested in that, we're going to be sending out some sign-up information. So we'd love to see you then. And I'm so sorry we didn't really get to asking a lot of questions, but if you have anything important and pressing, I really recommend that you contact your customer happiness team using this link over here. They're able to answer anything, and they'll usually be there within 24 hours unless there's some sort of holiday, of course, on our end. Thank you guys so much. You were great. I hope this was helpful, and I hope you guys take care. We will be sending this out as a recording, so hopefully we'll see you in the next one, guys. Take care.